wiggle and dance. So when you kick off your shoe, you make it wiggle, oh yeah. Wiggle and bounce, bounce, bounce. Yeah, I would never tell a lie to you, 'cause I believe in the truth, and I just wanna live good. I don't want no dirty secrets fighting me and you, boy. I could only drive one car at a time, but I still want to, cause everything is balance. Right through life, what we want is balance. So be a good wife, what you need is balance. Bend down, touch your toe, and balance. Go low and balance. Love comes from a place where we don't get jealous, and we don't live like no dream sellers. I say we keeping it real, I'm telling you like it is. I'll be there for you with anything you're facing. I'll be your sunlight when it's raining. Stay together and we going places. Yeah, yeah. I'll be by your side no matter the case. We have a one-way ticket to greatness, greatness. Girl, I don't want to lie, 'cause I believe in the truth, and I just wanna live good. I don't want no dirty secrets fighting me and you, boy. I could only drive one car at a time, but I still want to, and let me get to the truth. I just wanna live good. Look, the sun could shine the same time with the moon, boy. I could only drive one car at a time, but I still want to, Well, I don't have time to leave. Lucky for you, my friend. I in a good spirit. I drink in a good spirits. The vibes right up to the limits. So don't hold me down, don't fight me down. Yeah. Good spirit. I drink in a good spirits. The vibes ain't cast in a minute. So don't hold me down, don't fight me down. Yeah. My friend and them could I tell you about me. Good people is good people. We only want love and we still good. Yeah. Before my lick could I tell you about me.
Are you ready to make a lasting impact? Transform Life Solutions presents the Global Impact Leadership Summit, Rebuilding Jamaica from the Center. Saturday, April 4, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Garden Hotel in Mandeville, featuring guest speakers the Honorable Professor Leslie Rogers from Trinidad, Honorable Dr. Patrick Williams from Belgium, Leadership Coach Dr. Jacqueline Cousins from Jamaica. Admission is free. Hotel accommodations and exhibition booth spaces are available. Register now at www.tls-events.com. The Global Impact Leadership Summit, April 4. Don't miss it.
Noel Maitland, former police constable, convicted of the murder of his girlfriend, social media influencer Donnelly Donaldson, has today been sentenced to life imprisonment. 32 years and 4 months with parole eligibility only after that full term is served. A case with no body, a verdict built on circumstantial evidence. Tonight, what it means and what comes next. Also tonight, the budget battle deepens. Hurricane Melissa left Jamaica with a bill of $12.2 billion, 56.7% of this country's entire GDP. The government says new taxes were unavoidable. The opposition says the hurricane is being used to explain away a fiscal problem that predates it. Opposition spokesman on finance, Julian Robinson, joins us live inside Lead Story to make his case directly to the Jamaican people. And later, economist Dr. Chris Stokes stress tests both sides, the government's numbers, the opposition's plan, and what Jamaicans should expect from the debate still to come. I'm Jodie Ann Quarry, and this is Lead Story. It's been 3 years and 8 months since Donnelly Donaldson was last seen alive. July the 12th, 2022, she entered the Chelsea Manor apartment of her then-boyfriend, Noel Maitland, a serving member of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. She never left. Her body has never been found. And yet, on January the 22nd of this year, a 7-member jury returned a unanimous guilty verdict against Maitland for her murder. Today, Justice Leighton Pusey of the Home Circuit Court handed down the sentence: life imprisonment, 32 years and 4 months with parole eligibility only after that full term is served. A concurrent 2 years for the unlawful burial of her corpse. The defense had asked for 17 years and 10 months. The Crown recommended 36 years and 4 months, working from a starting point of 30 years. Justice Pusey landed between them, and the sentence is now on the record. Maitland's legal team has already indicated an intention to appeal. Before we speak with our legal analyst, let's go first to CVM's Akeem Oret, who was at the Home Circuit Court this afternoon. Hi, Akeem. Thanks for joining us inside Lead Story. Akeem, walk us through what happened today in court as Justice Leighton Pusey read down today's sentence.
Jody, let me first start by saying the sentencing, it was delayed. It was to start at 10. However, it was about minutes to 11 or after 11 that it started. Why? Because Maitland wasn't present in court. And when asked where he is, the information was not sufficient to share on where he is. And so the court had to break for 15 minutes. And when they came back, Justice Leighton Pusey, started his sentencing. And one of the things, or some of the things he highlighted, Jody, or we celebrating some of the things that came out of the case, is that the police, though Maitland is a part of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, as you mentioned in your intro, it didn't stop the police from acting on the information they received about Maitland. He also commended Indicom, for
That's
acting,
the Independent Commission of Investigations,
right,
yes.
For acting and doing a very good investigation into the case, or into the evidence, And he also mentioned the scientists, the Jamaican scientists, who they provided well-detailed evidence into the exhibits brought into court, over the 40 exhibits brought into court, during the trial.
This was a long-standing case. You have been tracking this
Yes.
case now for years as it's been going on. Help us understand the atmosphere in court today, because today was finally sentencing. We had a conviction earlier this year. What was the mood like in the court as now Justice Pusey handed down this life sentence, indicating it would be more than 30 years, 32 years and 4 months before parole eligibility, and also giving the 2 years as a concurrent sentence for the unlawful burial?
Well, today in court, Maitland, he was dressed in his dark gray and black jacket suit, twisted hair, black shoes. His mood was a bit somber. The courtroom, it was a little bit tensed because it was off to a late start and persons were anxious about, the number of years he's to serve in prison. And, Justice Pusey, he fell somewhere between the marking line, Christopher Townsend, that's Noel Maitland's lawyer. He was saying Maitland, should serve 17 years and 4 months and 10 years for parole. But the prosecution, that's the DPP, Claudette Thompson, he's to serve 36 years and 4 months. And he should serve 32 years before being eligible for parole. And so justice fell somewhere between that line in court today. And so the mood, it was a bit somber. Donnelly's parents, her mom, her sister, her grandmother, they were in court. And they too, they were anxious. They started crying outside court when, when they got out court. It was raining, and so the mother was declaring showers of blessing. Though he is serving life in prison, she says, that will never account for her missing daughter.
Akeem Moret, our CVM reporter who was live there at the Home Circuit Court viewing the proceedings. Thank you so much for taking us through what took place there and helping us better understand and appreciate what happened. Now, as we noted, Maitland's legal team has already indicated an intention to appeal. So the legal journey is not yet over. Joining me now for legal analysis is attorney at law, Alexander Shaw. Thanks for being with us on Lead Story tonight, Alexander.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We're watching this case now, a case that has captured national attention for a very long time. Finally, today, the country saw Noel Maitland sentenced for the murder of Donnelly Donaldson. This, though, is under new legislation, the Offences Against a Person Act, amended just last year in 2025, with the mandatory minimum for non-capital murder now 30 years. Walk us through what Justice Pusey would have had to have in mind when arriving at today's sentence.
Well, so given that there was a full trial and the issues were ventilated and the accused is still maintaining his innocence, all of that had to be considered. And, you know, when it is that a defendant pleads guilty, you know, he is entitled to certain discounts in sentencing. And so that did not happen in Maitland's case. But even in the absence of that, there is the social inquiry report. And I gather from what the mother was saying is that there was no sense of remorse. And that is taken into consideration because even after conviction, the judge usually commissions a social inquiry report to see whether or not, to determine the type of person that is before the court. And if it is found out, or if at that time, you know, it's not seem as if this person is somewhat repentant, then chances are the individual will get the full force of the law.
And that's what we saw today with Justice Leighton Pusey taking a look at what the Director of Public Prosecutions and her team suggested, taking a look at what the Defense Counsel had suggested, and then ending up at 32 years and 4 months. Alexander Shaw, though, Donnelly Donaldson's family has said publicly that while the conviction, and I suppose now the sentencing, brought some measure of closure, they believe Maitland didn't act alone, and they still don't know where Donnelly's remains are. Does the law provide any avenue, civil or criminal, for the family to pursue those outstanding questions?
Well, in terms of, I'm not sure that they can take any civil action because the case, as you have said in your preamble, that the case continues because already Maitland's defense team has indicated that they intend to challenge the conviction. And so we will have to await that outcome. And it's in cases like these that are the evidence in this case was entirely circumstantial. And so it is difficult to make a pronouncement because, you know, we have seen in the past where cases like, you know, when there were no eyewitnesses to ground what actually happened, it's very difficult and we're still in limbo. And I think that is perhaps part of why, you know, Donnelly's mother was not, though she's happy perhaps with the verdict and with the sentencing, she's still not at ease simply because she does not know what actually happened.
And I think that's going to be a really big thing. Talk to us finally before we close about what this appeal means. So what does that mean for Maitland? What does it mean for how long he stays behind bars? What the timeline is? How long this might take? What does that look like generally in court?
Well, generally you have 14 days to file a notice of appeal, and you know, pretty much you have to have grounds. What are the grounds that you are relying on? And usually, because this is a jury case we're talking about, and we don't know what the jury actually relied on. We don't know, we don't get to question the jury, because when you file the notice, you will ask for the transcript to see what actually happened in court. And if it is that there was some misdirection, then I would believe Maitland's counsel will actually challenge and ask the Court of Appeal to determine whether or not the directions given to the jury were proper and whether the entire proceedings, was actually fair.
So what you're saying then to us, Alexander Shaw, is that the story really doesn't continue. There's a whole other layer on top of this that we potentially be looking at, and we probably will be having you inside Lead Story to talk to us more about that, to better educate us in our justice system. Alexander Shaw, thanks so much for joining us this evening inside Lead Story. We appreciate your analysis. We're going to go to a break and come back next with the opposition spokesperson on finance, Julian Robinson.
Jamaica's unemployment rate has fallen to 3.3%, down from 13.2% in 2016. Our government's continued focus on job creation is delivering real results. We are building Jamaica. The time by the Office of the Prime Minister is...
Power in great moments. If you have financial needs, Chris and Charles will fix them for you. Power in great moments since 1992. Oh, we have it all. Power in great moments. With relax, you got Chris and Charles. Oh, we have it all. When you think alone, think Chris and Charles.
Where the Caribbean greets the morning, elegance isn't just seen, it's sensed. Set on Jamaica's north coast, the Montego Bay Convention Center rises with intention. A space designed to inspire, connect, and lead. Polished, purpose-built, poised for what's next. Step into a venue where scale meets serenity, where openness isn't just a design, it's a philosophy. This is more than a venue. This is where vision checks in.
Welcome back to Lead Story. Hurricane Melissa struck Jamaica's western parishes in October of last year. The Planning Institute of Jamaica now puts the damage at $12.2 billion, 56.7% of this country's entire GDP. The economy contracted by 1.4% in the fiscal year now ending. Against that backdrop, Finance Minister Favour Williams presented an $18 billion tax package, the first new taxes from this administration in 10 years, alongside an $11.4 billion transfer from the National Housing Trust. The opposition says, wrong medicine, wrong time, and they say they have an alternative. Julian Robinson, opposition spokesman on finance and member of parliament for St. Andrew South Eastern, now joins me. Good evening and welcome to Lead Story. Well, he should be here with us in a moment as we talk about what it is that we are hearing from the opposition. He made his full presentation inside Parliament yesterday. Let's take a listen to what Mr. Robinson had to say.
The budget that has been presented falls short in this regard. Falls short. It falls short for the woman in Sablamar who lost her shop and is hoping for some ease to the predicament that she faces so that she can send her children to school. It falls short for the man in Mobay whose car was destroyed in the hurricane and who wants to get his taxi business back up and running. It falls short for the man in Katadupa, the farmer, who we need to produce so that we can import less and we can supply our hotels. And it falls short for the NHT contributors, whose monies continue to be diverted away from the institution it was meant to serve, by a government that once opposed that very practice.
Floor of Parliament. That was Julian Robinson yesterday on the floor of Parliament, making his contribution as opposition spokesman on finance to the budget debate. We now have Julian Robinson inside Lead Story live with us this evening. Mr. Robinson, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, good evening to you and to your viewers as well.
Thanks for being with us. Julian Robinson, you made your contribution to the budget debate yesterday and you were very critical of the government's tax package. What's the core problem you see with the measures that have been presented?
Well, we have just 4 months ago, Jamaica experienced the most severe, the most devastating hurricane in the history of the country. In fact, it was categorized beyond a Category 5 hurricane. Now, you know, we must never get ourselves in a false sense of normality, mainly because we are in the eastern part of the country. But there are many people in Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, who have no house, whose livelihoods have been totally destroyed. If they're farmers, they're everything out. People who have no roof over their head. Now, at a time like this, when there are so many Jamaicans, and we're talking about thousands of Jamaicans who are yet to get back on their feet, 4 months after a hurricane, we do not believe additional taxes is the appropriate thing. We believe that people still need support. We recognize that there's a revenue gap, that the fall off in economic activity has impacted the government, but there has to be an alternative way to fill that gap. And we think taxes in an environment where you have a shrinking economy is going to contract the problem, because people have less disposable income, because they would have been out of jobs, their businesses would have been affected, and you are seeking to take $18 billion worth of new taxes from them. We just don't think the timing is right for that.
You put forward, as a result of that critique, a very specific alternative. Walk our viewers through that alternative. What are the sources? What do they yield? Sure. And how does it close the gap without new taxes?
All right, so I started off by looking at how we can increase compliance and collect more money as a country, how tax authority could do that, TAJ. And there's a system called electronic invoicing, which is, if implemented properly and which is mandatory for all businesses, would allow TAJ to have real-time information on all the transactions that are done by businesses. What this will do is, as a major business invoices a customer, that information is provided to TAJ. They will have an idea of how much GCT should be collected from it. So it's called electronic invoicing. And the critical difference between what exists now and what we are proposing is that we are insisting that this be mandatory for all businesses who operate under our tax system. In the countries that we have looked at, this has had significant positive impact, moving tax collection up between 10 and 15% without increasing taxes. So we propose 2% of the total of the GCT and the special consumption tax, and that would yield 8.6 billion. We propose the introduction of what is called a digital nomad program, where foreigners can come to Jamaica, people who have the opportunity to work from anywhere in the world, and set up and stay here in Jamaica for up to a year. It would be a visa that would last for 12 months, and the visa fees we calculate based on a 2,000 US per person and 5,000 visitors in the first year would generate 1.5 billion. But more importantly, the economic activity that would arise from this activity, where people would be staying at Airbnbs, hotels, guest houses, they would be buying food, they would be eating at restaurants, patronizing shops, consuming our music or entertainment. We anticipate that the multiplier effect for this using an average of a 6-month stay would be about 25,000 US per person. So we think we can generate in 1 year 19.5 billion in activity. Now that's not revenue, that's money flowing through the economy. Now, even after that, we looked at a couple of public sector institutions where there are surpluses generated.
Because you have a gap still, even with those two measures,
Right,
you
we
still have extra money that you need to come up with, because you say no taxes, so you have to help me out now, yes.
Right. So there are a couple of institutions that BOJ, we were going to take an additional billion, FCJ, we looked at where we could save costs. Airports Authority, we had a savings of 2 billion. So after that, we're left with 15 billion. And our view is that the government should borrow that money. And when we looked at the impact on the overall debt to GDP number, it would move the debt to GDP number by 0.44 of 1%. Right? Now, in the scheme of things, that is a relatively minor movement. And what you're doing is you'll be generating more activity, which would allow the economy to bounce back quicker, and you'll be able to bring back your debt to GDP numbers back to what they were prior to the hurricane. So we believe that's a better option than imposing the $18 billion worth of taxes on a population that is still not recovered from the devastating Hurricane Melissa.
All right, so that is then the outline of your presentation and what it is that you're saying is an alternative for Jamaicans to consider. Let's run through a couple of the things that you've highlighted. Electronic invoicing, specifically your projection of that $8.6 billion, resting on that 2% conservative figure of compliance across that 430 billion. Right, additional compliance measures.
Right.
So you pointed to countries like Mexico, Chile, Uruguay, and Peru as evidence that this works. What does it take to implement such a quick system, and how quickly can we get it in place to deliver?
And I believe we can. So the reason I only estimated 2%, and we're talking about fiscal year 26-27, I believe that it can be implemented within the year. There's already a system in place, so it's not that TAJ started from scratch. They have a system where people can upload it. The difference is this becomes mandatory. You're not depending on the business to put in an invoice. Sometimes people may not post all their invoices, or something may slip between the cracks. So there may be need for more IT support or to upgrade the system to facilitate this. But I believe it can be implemented within this fiscal year. And that's why our estimates of 2% are so conservative, given that you would be introducing this thing in the fiscal year.
All right, the digital nomad program, that's also an ambitious proposal that's put on the table. No. Projecting up to $19.5 billion in economic activity from 5,000 participants.
Activity, not revenue.
Not necessarily revenue, activity. Right. You cited Barbados' welcome stamp as a model.
Correct.
Tell us, what does Jamaica look like now if we're to put that in place and a realistic timeline?
Let's have a perspective here. Jamaica has 4 million visitors every year. 4 million. I'm saying if you promote Jamaica as a location for this, I'm projecting 5,000. That is a very small percentage of the total tourists who come to Jamaica. Now the fee, which is $2,000, and I've looked at 6 countries in the Caribbean, and that's the fee that is used for Barbados. There are 6 Eastern Caribbean countries that have a similar type program. Right. So
this is therefore not unrealistic for Jamaica then to just jump on board on something like that. Julian Robinson, though, we're going to take a quick break inside Lead Story. You're staying with us. When we come back, we put your alternatives under the microscope. Stay with us here inside Lead Story.
If you're a woman in business, it's time to go bigger.
Your ambition is calling, and Horizon for Women in Business is answering.
Horizon, a new loan product from Access Financial Services designed for women entrepreneurs to unlock the capital you need to grow and take your business beyond limits. With quick approval, flexible repayment, and low interest rates, your success is on the horizon.
Call us now. The funds are waiting.
Your success is on the horizon.
Every dream conquered is another dream gained. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction. 'Cause I'm wiser, one step closer. I'm winning 'cause I work so hard. And the music keeps on playing, and the people never say we are mash up the dance. Oh, what a feeling! Don't stop dreaming. Keep on believing in the power of the feeling. Whatever you want, take a chance. Song in your heart, step in your dance. You got a spark, don't put it down. Shine your lights
Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out, don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
Welcome back. I'm joined still by Julian Robinson, opposition spokesman on finance. Mr. Robinson, in the last segment, you made your case. Now we test it. Let's talk about the digital nomad program, because you have indicated that other Caribbean countries have it in place. But that proposal sounds attractive on paper, but there are experiences that have raised problems. In Lisbon, in the Canary Islands, in parts of Mexico and Costa Rica, the influx of high-spending remote workers has driven up rents, displaced local residents from their communities, and made the cost of living materially worse for ordinary people. Jamaica's housing stock is already under severe pressure after Melissa. Why would 5,000 high-earning foreign nationals spending that $25,000 US each not do the same thing here?
I don't think it would, because I think we have the capacity in terms of the units. In fact, I think right now there's an overcapacity in terms of properties at the high end. I mean, if I take my own constituency as an example, I mean, there are lots of apartments and townhouses that are empty, quite frankly, because there's been a building boom. So I don't think there's pressure at that end. The demand in Jamaica for housing is at the medium to the lower end. That's not where these people are going to be displaced. In fact, we have the capacity right now to accommodate those people without any issue. So I don't think if you had a tighter housing market where more Jamaicans wanted homes, and where Jamaicans want homes are in the range of 10 to 15 to 20 million starter homes. Where most of the nomads would be competing are in Airbnbs and townhouses, which are in a higher price range. So
higher price range for purchasing, Julian Robinson, but not for rentals. And there are complaints by individuals who say houses are being removed from the housing stock for rentals, converted to Airbnbs to accommodate visitors into Jamaica, leaving locals stranded. Examples cited there of countries that have that as real life examples. This seems like it could be creating a problem, not solving it.
I would disagree with you about it creating a problem. Jamaica has, there's a very different conversation about providing affordable housing. And we do have a challenge with access to affordable housing. That is an issue. And that's principally why we believe the NSG funds need to be put back into affordable housing. But I don't believe this is going to place pressure on it. I mean, I know of examples of people who do this right now, who come to Jamaica, have extended stays here. They generally stay in Airbnbs, or they stay in villas, or not normally hotels. And the expenditure that they make contributes positively to the economy. It doesn't displace it at all. And I don't think there will be a displacement effect at all.
If we don't have that displacement effect, let's look at the real life comparators then, because you cited Barbados' welcome stamp as your model. But Barbados is a different kind of country, a country of 280,000 people. Jamaica has nearly 10 times that population, a far larger informal economy, a significantly more entrenched poverty in its communities. The scale of benefit Barbados experienced may not translate proportionally, and the scale of displacement may be considerably larger. How do you protect Jamaican communities now from that risk while still capturing the revenue?
Well, Barbados estimates that each nomad spends $55,000 US per year. I don't think that would be a realistic figure here in Jamaica, which is why the projection that we have is 25 over an average of a 6-month period. And that's something that I've tested, and I can tell you that is a realistic figure. And again, my view on displacement is I do not believe this is going to create displacement based on what I know of the availability of rooms right now at that level. The issue Jamaicans have is access to affordable housing. And this does not create a problem for affordable housing. The affordable housing needs to be at a level, as I mentioned, 10 to 15 to 20 million.
All right. That 5,000 digital nomads, though, for them to pick Jamaica, they'd have to choose it over other destinations like Lisbon,
so
Bali, and Medellin.
And that's part of Jamaica has a well-established infrastructure promoting the country.
Promoting, yes, but it needs reliable high-speed internet in the parishes that were most attractive to remote workers. Many of them, Melissa, damaged significantly. It also needs other things like visa processing infrastructure that doesn't yet exist. It needs a marketing campaign to put the program in front of the right people globally. None of that is costed in your proposal. It just magically seems to happen. How much does it actually cost to build out what you're describing? And where does the money come from?
What I would say, the visa processing, we process visas every single day for people who come into the country.
As a specific category, though, for these individuals who are digital nomads.
And I'm saying you'd have to create that, but I don't see how that can be something very difficult to do, to create a category of visas. You would use you'd create an online system to do that. That's not, I don't consider that a difficulty. I mean, in terms of promotion, absolutely, you would have to have a marketing promotion to indicate to people that the country is open to attract people like this at this point in time. Yes, so that would be a little bit different from the traditional tourist marketing. But again, I mean, none of these things I'm saying you can flip a switch and it will happen tomorrow morning. Of course the government will have to do stuff. But I'm saying there has to be an effort to look at new revenue streams. And I believe these revenue streams are realistic within the fiscal year.
Well, that is the thing as well, because the high-speed internet that would attract these individuals is a high-speed internet that Jamaicans on the ground say they don't have access to. So we have to put that infrastructure in place, and all of that in this fiscal year to then give us revenue in the next 12 months.
Again, relatively speaking, and certainly by Caribbean comparators, Jamaica's infrastructure for ICT is certainly among the best, if not among the best, in terms of ICT infrastructure. I don't consider that to be a deterrent at all. I mean, if you look at the BPOs that operate here and other knowledge process outsourcing companies, they operate here because of that's one of the major advantages. So I don't see that as an issue. Of course, we have had dislocation because of the hurricane, and I wouldn't expect that, most of that activity would be in the most affected areas. But the eastern part of the country has been largely unaffected. The northern part, in parts of Oterius going to St. Mary, hasn't had the same level of impact as the western part. So from a capacity perspective, I don't think there's an issue in terms of finding the space for persons to stay here, have access to good internet, and operate.
The electronic invoicing is something as well that persons heard, and they said that's attractive. but that's been on the government's agenda and the opposition's agenda for years. The reason it's not been implemented is not a mystery. It requires significant investment in technology infrastructure at the Tax Administration of Jamaica, TAJ. It requires businesses, including micro and small enterprises, to adopt compatible point-of-sale systems. It requires a compliance campaign that takes time to put in place. You're projecting $8.6 billion this year,
2%.
year one.
2%.
2%. It assumes all of that is already in place, though. Is that a realistic assumption, or is this a year 3 revenue source, like, 2029 presented as year 1 solutions?
If you look at the countries that have done it, which is why we're so conservative with our projection for this year, the countries that have done it have seen yields of 10 to 15% once the system is implemented. So we are being very conservative in year 1. There's already a system there now. It's not that they're starting from scratch, but I accept you may need to upgrade what exists. But this 2% on 430 billion, in my view, is very conservative for 1 year. Once it is in place, I believe you're going to get a much larger collection over time. But we're just talking about the first year.
Yes, but that is the question, Mr. Robinson. This is the thing to be put in place. The costing for the upgrade, the thing to be put in place, the fact that it has been on the government's agenda, the opposition's agenda for years, and it still hasn't been put in place means something is a bottleneck. How do you plan to remove that bottleneck so immediately that we get to make money out of it in the next 12 months?
You have 12 months to do it. I mean, the information I have talking to people who are in the field, the major difference that is required here is moving from what is now voluntary to making it mandatory, right? That's the major difference, because right now a taxpayer can provide that information, and many do. The major difference is voluntary to mandatory. But again, we have to be determined if we want to increase compliance to do these things. And as I'm saying, I'm not going to pretend that come April 1, the system is going to be up and running, but you have 12 months to do it. And if the effort is made by TAJ to look at compliance to improve collections, I believe the 2% is very conservative within the 12-month time frame.
Those are two of the big proposals. Your last one was that residual $15.6 billion there, financed by Treasury bills. That was the suggestion that had been made. Domestic borrowing. Some will say that critics will argue that, well, the borrowing to pay recurrent expenditure, the things that we need to run the country, is precisely the fiscal habit that the IMF program was designed to break. You're also operating in an environment where the IMF is watching. Your credit ratings were maintained post-Melissa, so all the big credit rating agencies were watching, and they were considering giving us more money specifically because of the fiscal discipline that we had. Now, the margin for error is narrower. Is there a principled line between what you are proposing and the fiscal behavior that this country spent a decade trying to escape? Because it seems that if we do it this year, we might have to do it next year once again.
And the reason I actually calculated the impact of it is to show the impact. Remember, the context is the hurricane. The context is that you have 5 parishes where people have been devastated totally. There's a context. And what we are proposing increases debt to GDP by 0.44 of 1%. Right? And it provides you with puts you in a better position to build back your revenue base, to grow your GDP quicker than trying to extract $18 billion from a contracting economy. So you can get back to your pre-Melissa debt to GDP numbers quicker this way than sucking $18 billion out in new taxes from a shrinking population. So nobody was saying go and borrow 50 billion, 100 billion, and push your debt to GDP numbers way out. No, we looked very carefully at the number, and it is less than half of 1% in terms of what it would move our debt to GDP. The government, suspended the fiscal rules coming out of the hurricane quite wisely from our perspective to give itself a little bit of breathing room to recover. And for me, the context is recovering quickly, putting people back on their feet so that you can build back your revenue base in the shortest possible time.
I think that was important for Jamaicans who might not have caught your presentation in Parliament, but are listening to you now, not only here on the
No, that's why I was very deliberate.
but across
showing the impact.
The world, yes,
and
for them to hear.
Yeah, let me say, I mean, the last time the PMP was in office, we had to make very tough decisions to restore our international credibility, to bring the debt to GDP down, and it formed the basis of the major move from 150% to 60 and 70%. So nobody's going back and going to reverse those gains. But we have just experienced the worst hurricane in the history of the country.
And so this is then your solution, saying taxing is not the solution. This is the opposition's thing to do. Julian Robinson, opposition spokesman on finance and member of parliament for St. Andrews Southeastern. Thank you very much for joining us on Lead Story tonight. Still ahead, an economist takes the stand. We have Dr. Chris Stokes in with us, an independent verdict on both the government's budget and the opposition's alternative. Dr. Stokes, after the break.
Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins, and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's a live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yes.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.
Every dream conquered is another dream gained. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction. 'Cause I'm wiser, one step closer. I'm winning 'cause I work so hard. And the music keeps on playing, and the people that I say we are march up the dance. Oh, what a feeling! Don't stop dreaming. Keep on believing in the power of the feeling. Whatever you want, take a chance. Song in your heart, step in your dance. You got a spark, don't be the dark. Shine your lights on.
Welcome back to Lead Story. The government says $12.2 billion in hurricane damage left them with no choice. The opposition says the fiscal weaknesses predated the storm and that $18 billion in new taxes on an economy already contracting is a wrong medicine at the wrong time. An independent economist now weighs in. Dr. Chris Stokes joins me now. Dr. Chris Stokes, good evening and welcome to Lead Story.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm glad to have you with us inside the show. Dr. Stokes, Julian Robinson argues that the government could have avoided $18 billion in taxes, saying that, well, honestly, through electronic invoicing yielding $8.6 billion, a digital nomad program targeted transfers from the BOJ, he says, and the Factories Corporation, a $2 billion deferral on the Airport Authority of Jamaica's corporate head office, and financing the residual $15.6 billion through a treasury bill issuance. He puts it on the table as the opposition's alternative. Is it a credible alternative, Dr. Stokes, or is that a political document?
Look, it has some very good ideas in it, all right? But let's just step back a little bit and see, just to come down to the brass tacks. The government has taxes to raise $18 billion to plug an $18 billion hole in the budget. The opposition, Julian Robinson, by the way, an outstanding presentation. He's getting better year after year. went in a little bit of a circle. So he said, okay, 18 billion, we're not going to do that. We're going to raise taxes from, electronic invoice, bring in more taxes from electronic invoices, the no-bat visa, the things that you just listed. We're not going to take the NHT money. That's going to leave us with a $17 billion hole in the budget. So we started at 18 billion, but ended up at 17 billion. Then he says they're going to plug that 17 billion through treasury bond issues, which will increase the debt ratio by 0.44%. It raises the obvious question as to, we have gone the long way around to come back pretty close to where we were at the beginning. So that question then, of course, is if the government were to simply borrow more to cover that 18 billion, it would be very close to where the PNP ends up. Now,
which is the 15.6 billion that the PNP instead says that they have that gap.
On that journey to get to where they are some good ideas. I think, regardless of whether it is to address the immediate situation, I think the electronic invoicing is something that certainly should be pursued. It has merit on its own. I think the digital no-bat visa has merit on its own, and these are things that should be done anyway. The issue that comes to mind immediately, of course, is that any one of those, right? The digital, let's just take the digital invoicing. That's going to take some time to get in place, and the government has a hole to plug for 2026, 2027. So I think it's a very good idea. We should definitely pursue it. I don't think it solves the problem in the immediate
so not a 2026, 2027 budget solution.
I don't see that.
Maybe 2029.
Could be, because essentially you're asking the tax administration, TAJ, to do a lot more technically, and it has come a far way. It has had its hiccups. The idea that this will be in place nationwide, because the percentage that it takes is on the nationwide collection of revenues that you see, it could be boosted by that 2% that he mentioned. To have an infrastructure in place to be that wide is going to take time. It's not going to be in effect for the current
I think that's so important for you to.
That's just a fact.
To highlight
which is
that.
not to take away from the validity of the idea.
Good, but just not a 2026, 2027 solution.
I don't see that. I don't. Given this and any other government's track record in making material technological change, capital investments, it's not going to impact us.
All right, Dr. Stokes, the PIOJ projects the economy contracted by 1.4% in the fiscal year now ending. Robinson argues that, well, here's a problem. Imposing new taxes on a contracting economy is going to only magnify the contraction problems. A fancy term is pro-cyclical. I can't use that. I barely know what it means.
Yeah.
But is he correct? And if he is, what should the government have done instead?
On the face of it, in a certain economic process of economic thought or school of economic thought, he's absolutely right, because the theory is that when you raise taxes, it takes money out of the pockets of persons so they can consume less and they spend less in businesses, and therefore the economy, an already contracted economy, continues to contract. You cannot argue with that. If you want to delve deeper, though, the question that needs to be answered. Having raised the taxes, what does the government do with those taxes? Because there are things that the government can do with those taxes that can spur economic growth. So it's not just the fact of the tax on its own that affects consumption at the individual level. It will affect businesses in terms of the sales. But then if the government turns around, and by Mr. Robinson's own admission, capital investment is important. If that goes into ensuring that capital expenditure can be sustained and that fiscal stability can be sustained, and that we retain our rating to borrow further, then those sorts of activities that those funds could or ought to, if they're invested in capital and things that would generate additional economic activity, there is a scenario where it could actually be more beneficial. But certainly on the face of it, taking money out of people's pockets, giving them less to spend, the first response would be a contraction in economic activity there, but it's not the entire story.
Not the entire story. Let's see if we can piece together the entire story then. Mark Golding speaks next week, Tuesday, as opposition leader in the budget debate. Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness speaks next week, Thursday, in the budget debate. The government's own projections show Jamaica returning to a 1% steady state growth by the end of the decade. What are your one or two arguments? You need to hear most from each of them for this debate to actually move Jamaica's economic conversation forward.
This is the confounding challenge that we have. And I was very happy to see Mr. Robinson, at the last part of his speech, spend time on productivity and economic growth. He touched on energy, he touched on productivity of individuals, the educational system. This is the issue. To return to 1% to that level is not a win. You know, we have gone back to the original problem which we face, which is ongoing slow growth, slow to no growth in the economy. Now, we have spent a lot of time, from 2011, 2012 until today, stabilizing the economy, setting up, putting in place the macroeconomic infrastructure for growth, and now we have a setback. All right, and bear in mind that, you know, if we take the money that has been spoken about, $8 to $9 billion US dollars, that is going to have an impact on our. Or if that is to the extent that the majority of that is in loans, that is going to have an impact on our debt to GDP. If we run back up our debt to GDP, it reduces our fiscal space, reduces our ability to invest in capital.
So you want to hear that from both of them next week, from opposition leader and the Prime Minister?
We have to get back to growth. This is a thing we are set back, but we have to get growth back on the agenda, and everybody talks about it. The PM spent a lot of time talking about it with time for growth when he, during his swearing-in ceremony, and a couple of weeks later, then well, not weeks, but very shortly thereafter, here comes Melissa. So it raises a lot of issues, but we have to, as difficult as it is, we have to make sure that we keep the ship steady, we keep the macroeconomic environment steady, so that we can effectively pursue the growth strategy. And Julian touched on it today, and that is where we need to spend some time. Otherwise, we're really not dealing with the issues. I mean, a simple thing like...
we have to be looking out for what you're telling us to look for, Dr. Stokes, next week. Then opposition leader Mark Golding listening to the Prime Minister to see if they now see the importance of these big ticket items that you have highlighted, so that we can then reassess their speeches as well inside Lead Story. Dr. Chris Stokes, you're the man that we've been trying to get for weeks and weeks.
I know, but here I am. I was in a little cold weather, but here I am.
I'm glad that you're here. Thanks so much for joining us inside Lead Story for your analysis tonight. That's going to help so many people better understand what's going on. All right, here's my take. Who is being held accountable and who is being asked to pay? In the case of Noah Maitland, a court of law answered that question today. 32 years and 4 months, no early parole. A sentence that tells Donnelly Donaldson's family and every Jamaican woman watching tonight that this system can convict without a body, and it will not look away because the accused wore a uniform. The budget, those are harder discussion. There is no jury, there is no verdict date. There's only the debate and the questions that debate has not yet answered. Did the government arrive at these taxes because of a hurricane or because of a decade